Security, we have a situation here. Branch manager Derek Morrison's voice cracked like a whip across the marble lobby. His finger pointed directly at the impeccably dressed black woman standing calmly at the VIP teller window. Dr. Amara Williams didn't flinch. Not when every head in First National Trust's flagship Manhattan branch turned toward her. Not when the security guard's hand moved to his radio. Not when Morrison's voice rose another octave. "Ma'am, this is a private banking facility, not a welfare office. You need to leave. Now." The words hit like physical blows. 12 customers froze mid-transaction. Phones emerged from pockets. The 2:47 p.m. silence shattered into whispers and barely concealed stares. Amara's $15,000, 0 cents Irma's briefcase caught the afternoon light. Her Columbia law ring glinted as she placed manicured hands on the counter. These black stories rarely make headlines, but real-life stories like this reshape entire institutions when the wrong person gets underestimated. Have you ever held a secret so powerful it could destroy the person humiliating you? Morrison's chest swelled as he positioned himself between Amara and the VIP counter. His cheap polyester tie caught the afternoon light, a stark contrast to the silk scarf draped around her shoulders. "Look, I understand you might be lost," he said, volume rising with each word. "But this section is for our premium clients, people with real money." The marble lobby amplified every syllable. Conversations died, heads turned. Amara's grip tightened on her briefcase, but her expression remained glass smooth. "I'd like to speak with someone about my account," she repeated, her voice carrying the weight of boardroom authority. Morrison's laugh cracked like breaking glass. "Your account? Ma'am, our minimum balance is $50,000. The check-cashing place on 125th might be more your speed." A young woman near the ATM fumbled for her phone. Her thumb found Instagram Live and the red dot appeared. "Y'all, this is insane," she whispered. "They're really doing this to this sister right now." Viewer count, 23, 67, 156. Security guard Jim Hayes approached, his boots echoing on marble. 8 years of bank security taught him to read situations. This woman didn't look confused or lost. She looked dangerous. Not physically, something else. "Problem here, Mr. Morrison?" Hayes asked. "Just redirecting traffic," Morrison replied, his voice pitched for the entire lobby. "Making sure everyone finds their proper service level." The live stream hit 347 viewers. Comments flooded in faster than eyes could read them. Amara checked her phone. 3:06 p.m., 9 minutes until her Federal Reserve meeting. She typed quickly. "Slight delay. Handle a staffing issue first." The response came instantly. "Need backup. Maya." Amara's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Her sister, Dr. Maya Williams, had been confirmed as Federal Reserve Chair just 3 months ago. One phone call could end this. But something held her back. This needed to play out differently. "No backup needed," she typed. "See you at 3:15. Morrison caught the slight smile playing at her lips. "You think this is amusing? Security, I want her removed, now." Assistant Manager Kelly Chen emerged from behind bulletproof glass. "Mr. Morrison, maybe we should verify." "Kelly, this is exactly what corporate warned us about," Morrison interrupted, his voice carrying to every corner. "Identity theft, account fraud, people claiming to be someone they're not." The live stream viewer count exploded. 891, 1,247, 1,683. Hayes reached for his radio, but something made him pause. The woman's posture, the way she held her briefcase, the expensive watch on her wrist that cost more than his annual salary. "Ma'am," he said carefully, I'm going to need you to... Before you finish that sentence, Amara interrupted, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow filled the entire space. Are you absolutely certain you want to proceed? The question hung in the air like a loaded gun. Morrison, however, was too deep in his performance to recognize the warning. Absolutely certain, he declared, playing to his audience. This is what happens when people try to game the system. We have standards here. The live stream hit 2,156 viewers. First National Trust began trending citywide. Amara's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Watching the live stream, this is about to get interesting. Harvard Law, 1. Then another, girl, you better own them. Columbia MBA, 3. Her networks were mobilizing. Former classmates, colleagues, business contacts. The viral video was spreading through circles Morrison couldn't imagine. Mr. Morrison, she said, her voice carrying a new edge, I'm going to give you one final opportunity to reconsider your approach. No opportunities, Morrison snapped. No second chances. Security, escort her out. A second guard appeared. The lobby's energy shifted from uncomfortable to genuinely electric. Customers pressed against walls, phones recording from every angle. The live stream viewer count crossed 3,000. Major news outlets were picking up the feed. CNN's breaking news alert was already being drafted. Amara reached into her briefcase with deliberate precision. Every eye followed her movement. Morrison tensed. Hayes shifted his weight. The cameras captured everything. Her fingers found smooth leather. A business card holder worn soft from years of use. The same holder that had introduced her to Fortune 500 CEOs, federal regulators, and heads of state. Mr. Morrison, she said, her voice carrying the quiet authority of someone who'd never needed to raise it. I believe you wanted to discuss banking policy with me? The digital clock read 3:12 p.m. 3 minutes until her appointment with the Federal Reserve Chair. 3 minutes until Morrison's world collapsed. She pulled out a single business card. Ivory stock, embossed lettering, corporate seal gleaming in the afternoon light. This card, time crystallized. The lobby held its breath. Morrison's hand extended automatically, trained by years of networking events and corporate meetings. His eyes focused on the card. The words seemed to blur, then sharpen, then blur again. Dr. Amara Williams, Chief Executive Officer, First National Trust. The card slipped from his fingers. It fell in slow motion, spinning end over end before landing on the marble floor with a sound like breaking glass. The livestream viewer count hit 4,721. Comments exploded across the screen so fast they became unreadable. But 3 words appeared repeatedly. Oh my God. Oh my God, oh my God. Morrison's face drained of color. His mouth opened, but no words came. Behind him, Kelly Chen's hand flew to her mouth. Hayes took an involuntary step backward. The lobby was dead silent except for the hum of air conditioning and the distant sound of traffic 47 floors below. Amara looked at her phone. 3:14 p.m. Gentlemen, she said quietly, I believe we have some things to discuss. The business card lay on marble like a death sentence. Morrison stared at the embossed letters, his brain refusing to process what his eyes were seeing. That's impossible, he whispered. Amara remained statue still. The silence stretched until it became a living thing, crawling across marble floors and up cathedral walls. Kelly Chen retrieved the card with trembling fingers. She held it to the light, studying the watermark, the raised lettering, the corporate seal. Everything authentic. Everything real. Everything terrifying. Mr. Morrison, she breathed. This is legitimate. Morrison's face cycled through colors like a broken neon sign. Anyone can fake business cards. This has to be some elaborate con. The words ricocheted off marble walls. Customers pressed closer, phones emerging like weapons. The live stream viewer count exploded past 8,000, comments flowing like digital lava. Hayes stepped forward, his security training finally kicking in. 8 years of watching corporate executives had taught him to recognize real power. The way she held her briefcase, the quality of her jewelry, the absolute stillness that only came with supreme confidence. His stomach dropped like a stone. "Sir," he said quietly, "maybe we should verify." "Verify what?" Morrison snapped, desperation sharpening his voice to a blade. "I won't be intimidated by street theater. I've worked too hard to get where I am." The words hit the lobby like physical blows. Phones multiplied. The young woman live streaming started sobbing, her audience approaching 12,000 viewers. Amara moved, one step forward. Her heel struck marble with the sound of a judge's gavel. "Street theater," she repeated, each syllable precise as surgery. "Is that your professional assessment, Mr. Morrison?" Morrison's hands shook, but panic drove him deeper into his hole. "I think this is exactly what we were warned about. Sophisticated fraud. Identity theft. People pretending to be someone they're not to access accounts that don't belong to them." Each word was another nail in his professional coffin. The lobby watched in horrified fascination as a man committed career suicide with his own mouth. Mara's phone rang. She answered without breaking eye contact with Morrison. "Maya? I'm running late. Personnel issue." The voice on speaker was crisp, authoritative, unmistakably official. "Need me to call legal?" "Not yet, but have them ready." She ended the call. The silence that followed was deafening. "Federal Reserve," someone whispered. "She knows the Fed chair," another voice murmured. Morrison's world tilted, but desperation made him cling to his delusion. "Accomplices," he declared, his voice cracking like ice. "Coordinated fraud. Fake calls, fake cards, fake everything." Kelly Chen stared at him in horror. "Mr. Morrison, please." "No!" Morrison's voice rose to near hysteria. "I've seen this before. They research executives, print fake credentials, coordinate elaborate schemes." "Stop." The word came from Amara like a thunderclap. Every conversation died, every breath held. The lobby's vast space seemed to compress around that single syllable. She reached into her briefcase with deliberate precision. Not for another business card. For her phone. The banking app opened with a soft chime. She turned the screen toward the lobby, toward the cameras, toward Morrison's disintegrating reality. The numbers glowed like nuclear fire. Account balance, $127,450,892.34. Gasps rippled through the crowd like a physical wave. The live stream chat exploded into incoherent digital screaming. Morrison's face went from gray to green. $227 million, Amara said clearly. "My personal checking account. At your branch." Morrison staggered backward, his hands grasping air. That's not possible. Would you like to see my savings account?" Her finger hovered over the screen. "Or perhaps my investment portfolio?" The lobby erupted in whispers that built to a roar. Phones buzzed with incoming calls. News alerts pinged across devices. First National Trust stock price was free-falling in real time. Hayes was backing away slowly, his security instincts screaming danger. Not physical danger. Something infinitely worse. The kind of danger that ended careers and destroyed lives. Morrison grabbed the counter for support, his legs betraying him. "I couldn't have known." There was no way to know. Known what, exactly? Amara's voice was surgical steel. That I was wealthy? That I was important? Or that human beings deserve basic respect regardless of their bank balance? The question hung in recycled air like a noose. Morrison's mouth opened and closed silently, a fish drowning in corporate liability. The digital clock read 3:19 p.m., 4 minutes late for the most important meeting in Federal Reserve history. But some moments couldn't be rushed. Morrison straightened with desperate bravado, grasping for his last thread of authority. Even if you are who you claim to be, my actions were justified. I was protecting bank assets, following security protocols. Any reasonable manager would have what? The words sliced through his rationalization like a blade through tissue. Assumed a black woman was a welfare recipient? Called security on a customer requesting account access? Threatened arrest for banking while black? Each question landed like a physical blow. Morrison actually flinched, his body betraying what his mind refused to acknowledge. The live stream hit 18,000 viewers. Network news vans were circling the building like vultures. Police sirens wailed. Not for any crime, but because viral moments drew crowds, and crowds needed management. Remember to keep clean, so the news vans talk anti-viral. Customers pressed closer, sensing they were witnessing something that would be studied in business schools for decades. The young woman live streaming could barely speak through her tears. "Y'all," she whispered to her global audience, "this is history. This is what power looks like when it's quiet." Amara took another step forward. Morrison shrank back until marble bit into his spine. "Mr. Morrison," she said, her voice carrying the accumulated authority of boardrooms and congressional hearings. "Look around this lobby. Really look." Morrison's eyes darted frantically. Every face was a mirror reflecting his humiliation. Every phone was a witness to his destruction. Every second stretched into infinity. "These people will remember this moment forever," Amara continued. "They'll share this story until it reaches millions. Your name will become a case study in everything wrong with institutional bias." Morrison's breathing became shallow, rapid, panic attack territory. Sweat stained his cheap suit. "But," Amara said softly, and the single word stopped time, "this moment can be something else entirely." The word "but" hung like a lifeline in toxic air. Morrison grabbed it with desperate hands. "Something else?" Amara's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. "Not cruel, not kind. Something far more dangerous. Practical. This can be the moment everything changes, Mr. Morrison. For you, for this bank, for every institution that mistakes prejudice for procedure." Morrison swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing like a cork in rough water. "What do you want?" The question everyone had been waiting for. The live stream hit 22,000 viewers. News helicopters circled overhead. Social media exploded with hashtags that would trend for weeks. Amara smiled. It wasn't warm. It wasn't vindictive. It was the smile of someone who held absolute power and was about to use it. "I want transformation, Mr. Morrison. Complete, systematic, measurable change. And you're going to help me build it." The clock read 3:21 p.m. The Federal Reserve would have to wait. History was being written in real time on the marble floors of First National Trust. The word transformation echoed off marble walls like a death knell. Morrison's eyes darted frantically between Amara's face and the phones capturing his disintegration in real time. "I don't understand," he whispered, his voice cracking like old leather. Amara studied him with the detached interest of a scientist examining a specimen. "Understanding requires honesty, Mr. Morrison. Something you've struggled with today. The live stream viewer count exploded past 25,000. Comments flooded in from 12 countries. First National Trust was trending worldwide, but Morrison was too paralyzed to comprehend the scope of his viral destruction. Dr. Williams, Hayes ventured, his security training screaming at him to de-escalate. Perhaps we could move this conversation somewhere private? Amara's gaze shifted to him with surgical precision. Mr. Hayes, when Mr. Morrison humiliated me, was that private? No, ma'am. Then his education won't be private either. The words sent ice through the lobby. This wasn't about Morrison anymore. This was about every assumption, every microaggression, every moment of institutional bias that had ever gone unchallenged. Morrison grabbed the counter for support, his knuckles white against marble. What do you want from me? Truth, Amara said simply. Tell everyone here why you assumed I didn't belong. Morrison's mouth opened and closed silently. The question was a noose, and every possible answer would tighten it around his neck. I thought, his voice was barely audible. Louder, Amara commanded. Everyone deserves to hear your reasoning. Morrison's face cycled through colors like a neon sign in the rain. I thought you looked out of place. Out of place how? The silence stretched until it became unbearable. Morrison's breathing was shallow, desperate. You looked like you couldn't afford to be here. Based on what evidence? Morrison's hands trembled against marble. Your appearance. My skin color. The words hit the lobby like a physical force. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The live stream chat exploded into digital chaos. Morrison actually staggered backward, as if slapped. I didn't say that, he whispered desperately. You didn't need to, Amara replied, her voice carrying the weight of decades of similar encounters. Your actions said it for you. The live stream hit 30,000 viewers. News helicopters circled overhead like mechanical vultures. Police had cordoned off the street as crowds gathered to witness the viral moment firsthand. Kelly Chen stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. Dr. Williams, I tried to stop him. I suggested we verify. Kelly! Amara's tone was gentle but firm. You tried to do the right thing. This conversation is about those who chose not to. Morrison straightened with desperate bravado. Even if I made assumptions, they were reasonable assumptions. Security protocols exist for a reason. Any manager would have... Would have what? Amara's voice cracked like a whip. Assumed a black woman was a welfare recipient? Called security on a customer requesting account access? Threatened arrest for banking while existing? Each question landed like a physical blow. Morrison's face went from gray to green, his body betraying what his mind refused to acknowledge. Show me the training manual that teaches racial profiling. Amara continued relentlessly. Point me to the policy that instructs you to humiliate customers based on their melanin content. Morrison's mouth worked silently. There was no such manual, no such policy. Every corporate training video he'd ever watched had explicitly forbidden his behavior. Amara reached into her briefcase and pulled out her phone again. But this time, she didn't show the screen to Morrison. She showed it to the cameras. This is the First National Trust Employee Handbook, she said, scrolling through a digital document. Section 4.2, Customer Service Standards. Quote, all customers shall be treated with dignity and respect, regardless of race, gender, age, or perceived economic status. Morrison's breathing became rapid and shallow. I know the handbook. Do you? Amara's finger swiped to another section. Section 7.1, Anti-Discrimination Policies. Quote, any employee who profiles customers based on appearance or assumed demographics will face immediate disciplinary action, up to and including termination. The words hung in the air like a judicial sentence. Morrison's legs gave out completely. He slumped against the counter, his cheap suit wrinkled and sweat-stained. The woman noticed his distress. Her green eyes narrowed. "I completed the training," he whispered. "I passed all the tests." "Passing tests and applying knowledge are different skills," Amara replied. "You memorized the right answers, but internalized none of the principles." Her phone buzzed. A call from Mayor Williams, Fed Chair. She declined it and typed quickly, "Historic moment happening. Will call soon." The response came immediately. "Watching live stream. The whole Fed is watching. Make it count." Amara showed the text to the lobby. The Federal Reserve Board was witnessing this moment. The top banking regulators in the country were watching Morrison's professional destruction in real time. Morrison's face went from green to white. "Oh God. Oh my God, this is everywhere, isn't it?" "Yes," Amara said simply. "Your name is now permanently associated with institutional racism. Your children will find this video when they Google you. Your grandchildren will study this moment in business school." The live stream hit 35,000 viewers. Social media was erupting. Stock markets were reacting to the viral video. First National Trust's share price had dropped 12% in the last 10 minutes. And the crash had already happened in Park City. Morrison looked around the lobby desperately, seeking an escape route that didn't exist. Every face was a mirror reflecting his humiliation. Every phone was a witness to his destruction. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice breaking like old glass. Amara studied him for a long moment. Not with hatred, not with pity, with something far more complex. The calculation of someone who saw opportunity in catastrophe. "I want you to choose, Mr. Morrison." "Choose what?" "Future." Amara's voice was matter-of-fact, almost clinical. "You can resign quietly and hope this video doesn't follow you forever. Take whatever severance HR offers and pray your next employer doesn't Google your name." Morrison's breathing became labored. The viral video had already been screen-recorded thousands of times. This moment would live forever on the internet. The Myanmar stared at Morrison. His eyes rolled. "Or," Amara continued, and the single word stopped time, "you can help me ensure this never happens again." The lobby held its breath. Even the live stream comments paused, as if the entire world was waiting for Morrison's response. "Help you how?" he whispered. Amara's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. Not cruel, not kind, something far more dangerous. Transformational. By becoming the face of change. By standing up in front of cameras and explaining exactly what you did wrong and why. By helping me design training programs that prevent this from happening to anyone else. Morrison's mouth fell open. "You want me to publicly admit?" "I want you to publicly educate," Amara corrected. "There's a difference between humiliation and transformation. I'm offering you the chance to choose your ending." The offer was extraordinary. Most CEOs would have simply fired him and moved on. But Amara was proposing something revolutionary, turning the perpetrator into an advocate for change. Morrison looked around the lobby one more time, at the cameras recording his lowest moment, at the customers who'd witnessed his humiliation, at the young woman live streaming who'd been sobbing throughout the entire ordeal. When he spoke, his voice was barely audible. "If I do this, if I help you, what happens to my career?" Amara's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "That depends entirely on how committed you are to change. I don't want to destroy you, Mr. Morrison. I want to rebuild you into someone better." The live stream hit 40,000 viewers. News anchors were struggling to find precedents for what they were witnessing. A CEO using absolute power not for revenge, but for institutional transformation. Morrison's voice cracked like breaking ice. What would you need me to do? Everything, Amara said simply. Apologize publicly, design better training, implement monitoring systems, become a case study in redemption rather than just discrimination. She paused, letting the weight of the commitment settle. Your redemption arc will be as public as your downfall. Every step watched, every word recorded, every mistake amplified. Morrison closed his eyes, processing the magnitude of what she was offering. Not just a job, not just forgiveness. The chance to rewrite his story from perpetrator to advocate. When he opened his eyes, something had shifted in his expression. Not pride, he'd lost that forever. But perhaps purpose. Dr. Williams, he said, his voice stronger now, I accept. The lobby erupted. The live stream exploded. History was being made in real time. Amara extended her hand. Then let's change an industry, Mr. Morrison. The handshake lasted exactly 3 seconds, long enough for every camera to capture. Long enough to become the defining image of corporate accountability in the digital age. The elevator's ascent felt like rising from hell into purgatory. Morrison watched the floor numbers climb, 20, 30, 40, each digit marking his journey from public humiliation to private reckoning. 47 floors above Manhattan, Amara's corner office commanded the city like a throne room. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed Central Park and the Hudson River. Morrison had never been this high in the building before. Senior management existed in a different atmosphere. Sit, Amara said, gesturing to a leather chair that probably cost more than his monthly salary. Morrison perched on the edge like a sparrow on a wire, ready to flee. His hands still trembled from the lobby encounter. Amara settled behind her mahogany desk, the same surface where she'd negotiated billion-dollar mergers and advised Treasury secretaries. Today, she was negotiating something far more complex, a human soul. Before we discuss your future, she said, opening her laptop, let's examine your present. The screen filled with data, but not the overwhelming spreadsheets Morrison expected. A single chart appeared. Customer satisfaction scores over 18 months. Your branch ranks 847th out of 643 locations, Amara said simply. Morrison blinked. That's impossible. There are only 643 branches. Exactly. Amara's smile was sharp as a blade. You're so bad at customer service, you've achieved negative existence. The absurdity of it hit Morrison like a slap. Despite everything, he almost smiled. Almost. The real number is 612th, Amara continued. But you get the point. You're not just failing. You're spectacular at failing. She clicked to another screen. Want to guess why? Morrison shook his head mutely. Your branch serves the most diverse neighborhood in Manhattan, Amara explained. 47 languages spoken within a 6-block radius. Median household income ranges from $15,000 0 cents to $1,500,000 0 cents. It should be our most profitable location. Morrison's stomach dropped. Should be? Instead, it's bleeding customers faster than a severed artery. Amara's fingers danced across the keyboard. Account closures up 67% over 2 years. New account openings down 43%. Revenue declining despite population growth. Each statistic was a hammer blow. Morrison had thought his branch was performing adequately, but the numbers painted a picture of institutional decay. I didn't realize. You didn't realize because you were managing for people who looked like you, Amara interrupted. Comfortable customers, easy conversations, familiar assumptions. Her phone buzzed. A text from Maya, Fed chair. Ready when you are. The board is curious about your management style. Amara showed Morrison the screen. My sister wants to know how today's incident will affect federal banking regulations. Morrison's face went white. Your sister is the Federal Reserve Chair? Dr. Maya Williams, confirmed 3 months ago. Amara's smile was predatory. She's very interested in discriminatory banking practices. The weight of federal oversight settled over Morrison like a concrete blanket. His personal humiliation was about to become a regulatory case study. What do you want from me? He whispered. Amara leaned back, studying him like a chess player contemplating her next move. I want to offer you something no one else would. A chance to rewrite your story. Morrison's eyes narrowed. At what cost? Everything you think you know about banking, about customers, about yourself. Amara's voice was hypnotic, dangerous. I want to turn you into the manager you should have been from the beginning. She pulled up a document, not the overwhelming contract Morrison expected, but a simple list of commitments. First, you will personally visit every customer who left your branch due to poor service, all 247 of them. You will listen to their stories and learn from their experiences. Morrison swallowed hard. All of them? Every single one. Not to apologize, apologies are cheap, to understand what you cost them through your negligence. The second item appeared. You will spend 1 day per week for the next year working entry-level positions at community organizations in your branch's neighborhood. Morrison's eyes widened. Entry-level? Food banks, immigration services, community centers. You'll learn who your customers actually are instead of who you assumed they were. I just wanted to say that the third commitment was simpler but more terrifying. You will design and implement new customer service protocols based on what you learn. These protocols will be adopted system-wide if they prove effective. Morrison's breathing became shallow. System-wide? 643 branches, Mr. Morrison. Millions of customers. Your redemption story could transform an entire industry. The reporter spoke like L.A. Writer, rebranded for the upcoming Reunify version. She paused, letting the magnitude sink in. Or your failure could serve as a cautionary tale. Either way, you'll be historically significant. Morrison stared at the screen, processing the scope of what was being offered. Not just a second chance, but the opportunity to become something he'd never imagined. What's the catch? He asked. Amara's expression grew serious. The catch is that every step will be public. Every visit to former customers will be documented. Every day at community organizations will be filmed. Every protocol you develop will be scrutinized by experts. Morrison's hands started trembling again. Why would you do this? Why not just fire me? Because firing you teaches no one anything, Amara replied. But transforming you shows every manager in America that change is possible. She leaned forward, her intensity palpable. Mr. Morrison, do you know what your biggest problem is? Morrison shook his head. You're not evil. You're not malicious. You're just lazy. You took shortcuts, made assumptions, chose comfort over growth. Her voice softened slightly. Those are fixable problems. The observation hit Morrison like a revelation. He'd expected to be labeled a racist, a bigot, a villain. Instead, he was being called lazy. Somehow, that felt worse and better simultaneously. If I do this, he said slowly, if I follow through on everything, what happens to my career? Amara's smile was enigmatic. That depends entirely on how committed you are to change. Success could make you the most sought-on banking executive in America. Failure could end your career permanently. Morrison looked out the window at Manhattan, stretching endlessly in all directions. Millions of people living their lives, pursuing their dreams, building their futures. How many had he failed to serve properly? How many had he turned away through carelessness or assumption? The viral video, he said quietly. It's never going away, is it? Never, Amara confirmed. But you get to choose what comes after it. The question is, do you want to be remembered as the man who got caught discriminating, or the man who used that moment to transform an industry? Morrison closed his eyes, weighing the alternatives. Resignation would mean obscurity and shame. Acceptance meant exposure and accountability, but also the possibility of redemption. When he opened his eyes, something had shifted in his expression. Not confidence, he'd lost that forever, but determination. "Dr. Williams," he said, his voice steadier than it had been all day, "I want to be better than I was." Amara's smile was genuine for the first time since the lobby encounter. "Then let's start your education, Mr. Morrison." She reached for her phone to call the Federal Reserve, then paused. "One more thing. This won't be easy. There will be days when you want to quit, when the scrutiny feels unbearable, when every mistake gets amplified." Morrison nodded. "I understand." "Do you?" Amara's gaze was penetrating. "Because once we announce this publicly, once we commit to this path, there's no backing down. Your redemption arc becomes a public trust." Morrison took a deep breath, feeling the weight of decision settling into his bones. "I'm ready." Amara smiled and dialed her sister. "Maya, it's time for that Federal Reserve meeting. I have someone here who's going to help us revolutionize banking culture." She put the call on speaker. "Mr. Morrison, meet the Federal Reserve Chair. Maya, meet the man who's going to become our case study in institutional transformation." The voice on the phone was warm but authoritative. "Mr. Morrison, I understand you've had quite a day. Are you ready to help us ensure it never happens to anyone else?" Morrison's voice was clear and strong. "Yes, ma'am, I am." 6 weeks after the viral video that shattered his world, Morrison stood in the same lobby where his humiliation had begun. But everything had changed. The transformation wasn't dramatic or Hollywood perfect. It was messy, uncomfortable, and painfully real. Morrison's first customer visit had been a disaster. Mrs. Chen, whose account he'd mishandled 2 years earlier, had slammed the door in his face. "Too little, too late," she'd said through the chain lock. His second attempt hadn't gone much better. Mr. Rodriguez had listened politely for 10 minutes before saying, "You want to feel better about yourself. I want my time back." It took 17 visits before someone agreed to hear him out completely. Maria Santos, a single mother who'd closed her business account after being questioned about a legitimate cash deposit. "You made me feel like a criminal for running a restaurant," she'd told him in her kitchen while her children did homework nearby. "Every deposit, every withdrawal, you looked at me like I was lying." Morrison had sat in that kitchen for 3 hours, listening to how his assumptions had affected her business, her family, her sense of dignity. When he left, he understood something he'd never grasped before. Discrimination wasn't just about individual moments. It was about the cumulative weight of 1,000 small indignities. Back at the branch, changes were happening, gradually, not because of corporate mandates, but because Morrison was learning to see customers differently. The first change was simple. He started walking the lobby floor. Instead of hiding in his office, he greeted customers personally. The initial reactions were mixed. Some recognized him from the viral video and seemed wary. Others were simply surprised that a manager was paying attention. "Good morning, Mr. Kim," he said to a customer he'd previously overlooked. "How's your daughter's college fund coming along?" Mr. Kim blinked in surprise. "You? Remember that?" "I should have asked before," Morrison replied honestly. "Tell me how we can better serve your family's goals." The conversation lasted 15 minutes. By the end, Mr. Kim had opened a second savings account and referred 2 friends to the branch. Kelly Chen watched these interactions with cautious optimism. "He's trying," she told colleagues. "But some days are better than others." Indeed, Morrison's transformation wasn't linear. There were setbacks, moments when old habits surfaced. During a particularly busy afternoon, he caught himself making assumptions about a customer's financial capacity based on their clothing. "Stop," he told himself out loud, causing the customer to look up in confusion. "I'm sorry," Morrison said quickly. "I was about to make an assumption about what services you might need. Instead, let me ask, how can we best help you today?" Zara, the Columbia student who documented the original incident, continued filming Morrison's journey. Her weekly updates showed both progress and struggles. "Week 6, she whispered to her phone camera. "And he's still learning. Yesterday, he spent 40 minutes helping an elderly customer understand new banking technology. The old Morrison would have directed her to the online tutorials. The changes extended beyond customer service. Morrison had implemented what he called assumption checks, moments when staff were encouraged to pause and question their initial judgments about customers. "Before you decide what someone needs," he told his team during a morning meeting, "ask yourself, what am I assuming and why?" The practice was spreading. Other branch managers were visiting to observe Morrison's methods, not because they'd been mandated to change, but because the results were undeniable. Customer satisfaction scores had risen from 47% to 78% in 6 weeks. New account openings were up 89%. Most significantly, customer complaints had dropped to near zero. Dr. Maya Williams, the Federal Reserve Chair, visited for an unscheduled inspection. She spent 2 hours observing interactions before speaking with Morrison privately. "The numbers are impressive," she said, "but I'm more interested in sustainability. Can this change outlast the scrutiny?" Morrison considered the question carefully. "I hope so. But honestly, I need the scrutiny. Without it, I might slip back into old patterns." That's a remarkably honest answer. I've learned that honesty is the only foundation for real change. Amara arrived for her weekly check-in, finding Morrison in conversation with a customer whose English was limited. Instead of showing impatience, he was using a translation app while a bilingual colleague joined the discussion. "How many languages can we serve now?" Amara asked later. 11, with real-time translation for 12 more, Morrison replied. "But it's not just about language. It's about taking time to understand what people actually need." "And what have you learned about what people need?" Morrison paused, reflecting on dozens of customer conversations. "They need to feel seen. Not judged, not categorized, not processed. Seen. As individuals with unique circumstances and goals." That's a profound shift from 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks ago, I thought banking was about managing risk and maximizing profit. Now I understand it's about serving human dreams. The transformation was real, but fragile. Morrison knew that earning back trust would take years, not weeks. But for the first time since the viral video destroyed his old life, he felt hopeful about the person he was becoming. Change, he was learning, wasn't a destination. It was a daily choice to be better than yesterday. 3 months after the viral video changed everything, the marble lobby of First National Trust hummed with a different energy. Morrison stood in the exact spot where security had threatened to arrest Amara. But now he was greeting Mrs. Patterson, the elderly black woman who'd closed her account the previous year. "Welcome back," he said, his voice carrying genuine warmth. "I've been hoping you'd give us another chance." Mrs. Patterson smiled cautiously. "My granddaughter saw your video, said maybe people can change after all." The transformation wasn't complete. It never would be. But it was real. Zara live-streamed from the corner where she'd first documented Morrison's downfall. Her audience had grown to 50,000 followers who'd watched every step of his redemption journey. 3 months ago, this lobby represented everything wrong with institutional bias, she told her camera. Today, it's proof that accountability can create change. The numbers supported her optimism. Morrison's branch had achieved 91% customer satisfaction, highest in the company's history. More importantly, the demographics of their premium customers now reflected the neighborhood they served. But the real change was harder to quantify. It lived in moments like Mrs. Chen speaking Mandarin with their new bilingual specialist, in Mr. Rodriguez's teenage son opening his first savings account without feeling judged, in the way conversations happened with respect instead of assumptions. Amara arrived for her final monthly inspection, finding Morrison in the lobby rather than hiding in his office. 3 months of community service had taught him that management meant serving, not commanding. "How does it feel?" she asked, gesturing to the bustling space where customers waited patiently because they trusted they'd be heard. Morrison considered the question carefully. "Humbling. Every day I discover something else I was doing wrong. But also hopeful, because every day I get a chance to do better." The viral video had reached 4.2 million views, spawning countless discussions about bias in corporate America. But its legacy wasn't just the moment of humiliation. It was Morrison's documented journey from perpetrator to advocate. The hardest part, Morrison told Zara during their final interview, wasn't admitting I was wrong. It was realizing how many people I'd hurt without even noticing. His voice carried the weight of 73 customer visits, each conversation a lesson in the cumulative impact of small indignities. As closing time approached, Morrison walked through the lobby one last time, straightening chairs and ensuring tomorrow would start perfectly. The same marble floors that had witnessed his destruction now supported his reconstruction. Zara addressed her audience directly. This story matters because it's not just about one man's redemption. It's about all of us recognizing the Morrison in ourselves, the assumptions we make, the biases we carry, the people we overlook. She paused, letting the weight of that truth settle. These black stories, these real-life stories of transformation, these touching stories of accountability, they're only powerful if they inspire us to examine our own behavior. The comments flooded in immediately. Made me think about my own assumptions. Going to check my bias at work tomorrow. This is what growth looks like. So here's what I need from you, Zara continued, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd witnessed transformation firsthand. Share this video, not just because it went viral, but because it shows what's possible when we choose growth over defensiveness. Comment below about a time you caught yourself making assumptions about someone. Subscribe if you believe that life stories like Morrison's prove we're all capable of becoming better versions of ourselves. And remember, she said, her eyes bright with possibility, the most important question isn't whether Morrison changed. It's whether watching his story will change you. The live stream ended with 12,000 active viewers and hundreds of commitments to examine personal biases. The conversation continued across social media platforms, in workplace discussions, in moments when people paused before making assumptions. Morrison's viral humiliation had become humanity's mirror, reflecting not just one man's prejudices, but society's opportunity to choose transformation over judgment. Tomorrow, the marble lobby would fill again with customers seeking respect, understanding, and the dignity of being truly seen. And Morrison would be there, greeting each person not as he assumed they were, but as who they actually were. Some mistakes, it turned out, were worth making if they led to becoming the person you were always meant to be.